Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's retirement ceremony. Today, the men and women of Headquarters Air Education and Training Command, Operations and Communications Directorate pay special tribute to Lieutenant Colonel Scott Jensen upon his retirement from active duty from the United States Air Force after 33 years of faithful service. The presiding official for today's ceremony is Colonel Marcus Cooley, Chief, Cyberspace Operations Division, Directorate of Cyberspace and Information Dominance, Headquarters Air Combat Command, Joint Base Langley, Eustis, Virginia. I'm Staff Sergeant Blake Duquette, and this is Major Joseph Peterson, and we will be your narrators for today's ceremony.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem by Ms. Sabrina Seif and the invocation by Pastor Dave McKnight.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night the flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We join our hearts in prayer. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this great nation. We give you thanks for those who serve to protect and defend this land. We give you thanks for their families who stand behind their service members. And today we ask that you would especially be with Lieutenant Colonel Scott Jensen and his family as he brings his active duty service to a close to the United States Air Force and to this grateful nation. Bless this time that we spend together. We ask this in your most gracious and merciful name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Thank you, Ms. Sabrina Seif and Pastor Dave McKnight. Please allow me to extend a warm welcome to our special guests, Lieutenant Colonel Jensen's wife, Ms. Lena Jensen, their children Tiffany and Tyler, and their grandson Brendan. His mother, Miss Jane Jenkins. His brother, Mr. Sean Jensen, and his wife Jennifer. And Lieutenant Colonel Jensen's niece and nephew, Ashley and Landon.
We also welcome our distinguished guest, Colonel Jeffrey Sorrell, Deputy for Communications, Operations and Communications Directorate, Headquarters Air Education and Training Command. Colonel Fred Bangisser, United States Army, retired, and his wife Martha. Colonel Andrew Gale, United States Air Force, retired. Chief Master Sergeant Judy McClure, Superintendent, Air Force Nursing Operations, Air Force Medical Operations Agency, Joint Base San Antonio, Lackland, Texas. Chief Master Sergeant Stephen Zimmerman, Communications Senior Enlisted Advisor, Headquarters Air Education and Training Command. We also welcome all other chiefs and distinguished visitors.
We also extend a warm welcome to all other family members, friends, and especially the men and women of the Operations and Communications Directorate and Computer Systems Squadron who join us today. The military retirement ceremony is an Air Force function steeped in military tradition and history. It is a milestone which very few of our nation's citizens ever reach, and an honor bestowed upon those few who have chosen to devote the greatest portion of their adult life to the service of their country, ahead of their own interests. Regardless of the uniform worn, their service will never be forgotten. Today, we are bidding farewell and celebrating the career of a great airman whom we have all known and have had the pleasure to serve with. Lieutenant Colonel Scott Jensen. Now it is at this time and my pleasure to present Colonel Marcus Cooley.
So I have notes, Scott, because almost 34 years of crap is a lot to remember. Good afternoon. My name is Marcus Cooley. I say Marcus Cooley because I'm here as a friend. I'm here to Scott Jensen. This is my friend, and I'm happy to be here today. Jeff, thank you so much for allowing me to come here. Colonels, thank you for being here. Chiefs, thank you for being here. This is an awesome day. So I just want to chronicle and tell you how me and Scott started our day, just the way he entered the Air Force. So today, me and Scott, you know, being that I flew in on, I didn't get to my room till 1:30, but Scott, this morning, that's okay. Scott goes, hey, let's go to a BMT parade. I'm like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? But it was awesome, absolutely awesome. 812 of our finest enlisted today to continue to fight. Even though today is a sad day for us losing Scott, but be assured, there's 800 more warriors that just signed up, so we should all applaud that. So I guess we're here to talk about this guy. So first, I want to say thank you for that beautiful rendition of our national anthem. Pastor, thank you for the invitation. MCs, you scared me there because I know you were back there, Major. I didn't know what was going on, but to the family, love seeing all you guys. This one right here, she was about knee-high last time I saw her, so thank you for growing up and making me feel old. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's the heels? Oh, thank you for saying that. So, we are here to celebrate 33 years and 9 months, so let's just call it 34, of service to our nation. But something's wrong here. So, in promotions, retirement ceremonies, there's always a position of honor. So I'm going to advocate my seat to the other piece of that team. Lena, get up here.
Oh, yeah!
This is just as much as your retirement as this clown here. So, but even more important, because you've been behind him the whole time, and we really appreciate that. So don't you think this is appropriate? So Scott and Lena have gone from the ranks of Airman Basic through Tech Sergeant, and then he joined the dark side, became a second lieutenant, up to Lieutenant Colonel. So that should be applauded. So as we start our story, Scott was born way back in 1967. So back then, the world population was 3.5 billion. It's doubled. The first successful heart transplant was performed in South Africa. The first automatic car wash Super Bowl I was played. The kids over, they're mortified. They're like, what is going on? So the first Dorito was sold in the United States with no nacho cheese. 2 years later, it came with the nacho cheese formula. The top TV show was Andy Griffin's show. A gallon of milk cost $1.07, and a gallon of gas was 31 cents. I know. So typically in these ceremonies, you chronicle the retiree's career and all the great things he's done. Well, about a month ago, Scott sends me the draft script. In a couple moments, you're going to read this. I know you had something to do with this, didn't you? And it's this line of blue. And it does this outstanding job that you're going to witness, and it's going to be soul-stirring. It's going to talk about his career and tell about all the great achievements he did over his career. And my question is, Scott, what the heck am I going to talk about?
That's your problem.
Apparently, Jeff, you're not trained that well. You don't give the senior officer the problem.
It's not trainable.
So, I am not going to repeat that or foreshadow that. I'm going to let you hear that ceremony, but what we're going to talk about is more of a personal aspect, and we're going to talk about the 34 years that this team has defended the 6 of our country. That's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So, we're going to talk about it in the pillars of strength, friendship, and overall service to our nation. So, strength. Our story begins with Little Scott. I say Little Scott. I can't type that. Little Scott making the decision to serve in 1985. Again, more popular stuff. Gas price, $1.19. Went up a little bit. The first NES was released. Nintendo, Duck Hunt, Super Mario Brothers. Mom, that still didn't keep him home. He left you.
That Super Net thing.
Yeah, I know. Michael Jordan was Rookie of the Year. Popular films, Back to the Future, Cocoon, Color Purple, and Mad Max. Kids again are like, what are you talking about? Okay. Of course, after going through 6 weeks of basic training, going to AIT, he ends up at Ellsworth Air Force Base as a heating systems apprentice. So, really funny side story. I tell you, you keep talking to me, I'm going to have all these stories, we're going to be here all day. But Scott tells me something in the hallway. He said, yeah, I remember we were in there playing, we just throw asbestos at each other. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Is that a problem?
A little bit. So, I know, right? 100%, that's the dog. He was like most typical airmen, wide-eyed, curious, without any idea what the future holds. But guess what? He still served. Then, what happens? In 1992, Scott and Lena were introduced by a fellow Air Force couple. They're here today, right?
No.
They're not here today? Okay, all right. They were set up at a barbecue. Okay, was it love at first sight? Man, yeah. Okay. Scott admitted something to me, and you shouldn't have sent me this if you didn't want me to say this. But he said that Playboy Scott was dating 2 other women at the time. 2 other women at the time. But when he met Lena, they dropped off. He never called them back.
But one stopped by the house while Lena was there.
Playboy Scott. So a year later, Scott received orders in Japan, and he said, you want to go with me? They get married, right? So, and they never had a honeymoon, so hint, hint. He can afford it now. Okay. So, unfortunately, Lena's family medical clearance was held up by a colonel who felt that the clearance should be done on the other end. I know we're the problem, Jeff. Yeah, I know, we suck. Frozen middle. All right. So, he had PCS to Kadena without her, without his brand new bride. But, for some reason, I don't know how this happened, Scott was able to do all her medical clearance to include her mental evaluation to go to the appointments for her. So, if you see something strange in your medical record, you know why. Because Scott gave all the answers, so there's no telling what's in there. Yeah. So if you're stopped at the gate, yeah, absolutely. But with all of that, again, they still serve. They were still here guarding the 6 of freedom. Okay? After a couple years, and then before they left Okinawa for Lackland, they applied for Lena's green card. It took a couple years to gather all the paperwork, and an additional year once you applied. Again, but they still serve. As you can see, the bureaucratic process keeps throwing up roadblocks. But they're still here. Lena, you could have left. You could have gone, I'm done with this. But you still serve. A year later, the card arrived. But guess what? It had Lena's maiden name on it. So, kind of a problem. But they still serve. Scott worked out some process where there was a Christian group taking photos. You took a photo. You went to the passport. You made it happen and you got it done. Okay? After a few more assignments, it was time for the family to move to Germany. And this is where I meet Scott. But before that, there was one other problem. Lena could not go. It was that, I'm telling you, it was that mental evaluation. INS informed them that if she were to leave Germany, her permanent green card would be invalid. Doesn't sound pretty much as permanent status to me because she had to be in the States while the process is going. So Scott, and this is where I know Scott has a lot of pull than I do, or anybody else in this room. So Scott called his congressman and his senator to make it happen, to see what INS can do. And somehow, magically, through driving from the port at Baltimore to Philly and back and getting an expedited passport, making it happen, some very stern staff sergeant at BWI taking the brand new passport, scratching it to see if it's fake, you know, you name it. But
She got her citizenship on our port call dates.
Yeah.
We got her passport within 20 hours after receiving citizenship. They didn't think it was real.
But again, they still serve. Okay. All right, so Scott gets to Germany, and this is where I meet Scott. So another clown in the room back here, Colonel Select Chris Rubiano. We served in USAF CAG, which is a soul-sucking job. Just going to be honest, especially when you type up 40 pages of the most eloquent words ever you want the 4-star to say, and he redacts 38 of them. So, yeah, and then has the nerve to tell you good job. You know, you guys remember those days? Like, what's all this red? Yeah, but it was one of the best teams I've ever worked for or had the honor to be a part of. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. I'll talk about the friendship a little bit later in another pillar. But absolutely phenomenal team. Scott was always there. There was never a task that someone had to be there ridiculous hours on because everybody had everybody's back. And I really appreciate both of you guys. And Scott was part of that. He was central to that. He was a calming force. Because you know me and Chris would be running around mad. Scott's the guy, guys, calm down. It's not that bad. So again, they still serve. So as we talk about the second pillar of friendship. So friendship is very important when you serve because it's not about, you know, people say, oh, we serve the Constitution, we serve the orders, we take the oath of office. But guess what? You serve about the men and women to the left and your right. That's what it's about. It's about the friendship that you forge, both in battle, in work, in PowerPoint. So I really appreciate Scott. So I went through a tough time when I was in USAF. Unfortunately, we lost my father, and these guys stepped up. There was never, it could have been, oh, why isn't he here? He needs to be doing this. No, they stepped up. Dude, really appreciate that, and I appreciate you for allowing him for those some long hours. Because you can imagine, with only 3 or 4 of us, and the demands on the 4-star and everything, so they each parceled out my work and it only kept them away from their family. So, dude, hey, appreciate that. So, like I said before, great job, great people, and I really appreciate that from friendship. I'm sure that everybody in this room can talk about friendship from a standpoint. I'm sure it's family, it's friends, and what type of a man Scott is. Scott has never met a stranger. Think about that. He has never met a stranger. He's always has an open heart. Brother, and that's one of your best qualities. And the last thing I want to talk about is defining both of you and Lena's military career as service. Just service. And you talk about the things you've done, and you're going to hear about that in the lines of blue, but think about it. 34 years. So let's do a show of hands. Who's under 34? Under. Yeah, you can claim that. Think about that. People weren't even born yet. That was kind of dead, so you can laugh. But dude, you guys have been at our 6. You have been everything. The first major operation was El Dorado Canyon, all the way to the current war on terror and everything that we're doing around the world today. You name it, there's too many operations to count. You guys have been there. That's something that you should have a sense of pride about. And be assured that we're still here and we're going to hold up. So, and also with service, Lena, you have been there for Scott. You have been there as he maintained HVAC system. You know, supposed to be working, but throwing asbestos, playing safe. Crafted PowerPoints, maintained network, commanded troops. Came home with complaints and acronyms that you never heard of, but you listened to, you had a little interest. But you did. We owe you a gratitude and admiration. And before I get off stage, I'm going to do something for you here, because this is an Air Force spouse's form, and I want to give this to you because you deserve it, and you have a position of honor, and you don't move here. I'm not sitting back here today. Okay? You sit here. We'll make him move. He got to get a bunch of gifts. And we love you. I'll talk a little bit about this guy as he in the twilight of his career and he moves on. So in the vein of service, Scott is going to follow his calling to be a pastor. What better service can that be to his fellow man? Even deployed. You were at Chaplain off base, right?
Yeah, on base, yeah.
On base there, on base in Kabul. You know, he's ministering to men in service in combat. What a great calling. And I think that, because you got ordained as grandson, correct? Okay. And so he's going to continue that here locally at Concordia. See, I'm brain cells still firing. So Scott, it has been my pleasure to come here today. Hopefully I did a decent job of chronicling the person that you are. Brother, I admire you. I will always be there on the phone when you call. Just let me know, and I'll be there. And we appreciate, and from a grateful nation, we congratulate the both of you on your retirement, and hope to see what life brings you guys in the future. So thank you. So are you ready to do this? All right.
Thank you, Colonel Cooley. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand in honor of Lieutenant Colonel Jensen's service. Colonel Cooley will now present Lieutenant Colonel Jensen with the Meritorious Service Medal. This is to certify that the President of the United States of America, authorized by Executive Order 16 January 1969, has awarded the Meritorious Service Medal, 4th Oak Leaf Cluster, to Lieutenant Colonel Scott A. Jensen for meritorious service from 2 August 2017 to 31 August 2019. Lieutenant Colonel Scott A. Jensen distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States Air Force as Chief Cyberspace Programs and Projects Branch, Director of Operations and Communications, Headquarters Air Education and Training Command, Joint Base San Antonio-Randolph, Texas. Under Colonel Jensen's leadership, he delivered an $18 million commercial wireless internet service at 26 locations across the United States, shaving 24 months off the schedule and saving $4 million from the approved budget. The enterprise-wide effort provided the infrastructure for innovation projects across the command and facilitated on-demand training for 206,000 personnel annually. Additionally, he led communications efforts for 19 basing actions, paving the way for reception of the TX trainer and KC-46A refueling aircraft at 6 locations, assuring future pilots for the Air Force. Furthermore, he oversaw the development of 2 cyberspace protection teams, hardening F-35 and F-16 fighter aircraft resulting in 35,000 successful sorties. Finally, as the 85th Engineering and Installation Squadron Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Jensen's warfighting focus directly aided combat operations in United States Central and Africa Command's area of responsibilities, resulting in his unit's selection as the Air Force Space Command's Best Cyberspace Expeditionary Squadron for 2017. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Colonel Jensen culminate a long and distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Given under my hand, William A. Spangenthal, Brigadier General, United States Air Force, Director of Operations and Communications, Headquarters Air Education and Training Command. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the reading of the retirement order. Special Order Number AC 003987, effective 31 August 2019, Scott A. Jensen is relieved from active duty, Directorate of Operations and Communications, Headquarters Air Education and Training Command, Joint Base San Antonio-Randolph, Texas, and is retired effective 1 September 2019 per AFI 36-3203 in the grade of Lieutenant Colonel, by order of the Secretary of the Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
In honor of Lieutenant Colonel Jensen's retirement, Colonel Cooley will now present Lieutenant Colonel Jensen with a certificate of appreciation from the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, which reads, I'm proud to join your friends and family in congratulating you on your retirement from the United States Air Force. The achievement and contributions you have made throughout your career are indicative of the core values of our great service. Your retirement is well deserved, but your selfless contributions will be sorely missed. On behalf of all airmen, thank you for your faithful and devoted service to our nation. As this chapter in your life closes and a new one begins, I hope the years ahead are filled with more great memories and continued success. Signed, Khalith Wright, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
In addition, Lieutenant Colonel Jensen received a certificate of retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States and a letter of appreciation from the Commander of Air Education and Training Command. The letter reads, Dear Lieutenant Colonel Jensen, on behalf of the men and women of AETC, congratulations on your retirement following an exceptional career of dedicated service to our nation and the United States Air Force. You have served with selfless and superb distinction through many demanding and wide-ranging assignments. Your distinguished career is one to be proud of, and the Air Force truly appreciates the impact your leadership and guidance made on so many individuals. Thank you for your patriotism and dedication. You will be missed. Joni joins me in sending warmest regards and best wishes to you and your family as you embark on life's next chapter. Sincerely, Stephen L. Quast, Lieutenant General, United States Air Force, Commander, Air Education and Training Command. The certificate of retirement reads, This is to certify that Lieutenant Colonel Scott A. Jensen, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Air Force on the first day of September 2019. Signed, David Goldfein, General, United States Air Force, Chief of Staff.
Furthermore, Lieutenant Colonel Jensen received another certificate of appreciation for service in the Armed Forces of the United States, which reads, I extend to you my personal thanks and the sincere appreciation of our grateful nation for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of military service. I trust that in the coming years, you will maintain an active interest in the armed forces and the purpose for which you served. Those who follow in your footsteps will draw inspiration from your commitment, dedication, and sacrifices made to ensure the protection of our American freedoms. My best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future. Signed, Donald J. Trump, Commander-in-Chief. Lieutenant Colonel Jensen has also received other certificates of appreciation from state governors and flown state flags that are on display in the lobby.
Every retiree receives a special retirement pin as a memento of their active duty service. At this time, we ask Ms. Lena Jensen to come forward and place the retirement pin on Lieutenant Colonel Jensen's left lapel to symbolize his transition from active duty to retired status.
You don't want to put the frog in the back of this. It's not gonna
Thank you, Mrs. Jensen. Please remain center stage. Colonel Cooley will present Lena with certificates of appreciation from both the United States Air Force and the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and a letter of appreciation from the Commander of Air Education and Training Command, which the first certificate reads: on behalf of all Air Force airmen and their families, the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force presents this certificate of appreciation to Lourdes L. Jensen. I join your spouse, family, and friends in thanking you for the numerous contributions and sacrifices you made in support of our United States Air Force. Your dedication gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service in defense of our nation. Signed, Kalitho Wright, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
The letter reads, Dear Lena, the men and women of AETC thank you for your faithful years of commitment and dedication to the United States Air Force. It takes immense strength and character to relocate year after year, but you did it unselfishly. You set an example for the entire command and constantly reminded us that it takes a team, both husband and wife, to make our Air Force what it is, the best in the world. We thank you for your commitment to your husband and to our great nation. Now, with deepest gratitude, we give him back. Sincerely, Stephen L. Quast, Lieutenant General, United States Air Force, Commander, Air Education and Training Command. The Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Air Force reads as follows. In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents the Certificate of Recognition to Ms. Lourdes L. Jensen for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave him strength and purpose to your spouse's service. Signed, David Goldfein, General, United States Air Force, Chief of Staff. At this time, we ask Tiffany, Tyler, and Brendan to come forward. Colonel Cooley will present the Jensen family with certificates of appreciation from Air Education and Training Command.
So how about we, Tiffany?
In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents these certificates of recognition to Tiffany Jensen, Tyler Jensen, and Brendan Cox for your support, which gave strength and purpose to your father and grandfather's service. Signed, William A. Spangenthal, Brigadier General, United States Air Force, Director of Operations and Communications, Headquarters, Air Education and Training Command. Thank you, Mrs. Jensen, Tiffany, Tyler, and Brendan. You may be seated.
At this time, Mr. Sean Jensen will make a special presentation to his brother.
So the reason Sean is undoing this here is that he built this. So this is chronicling all the different assignments I had out there, and one thing that I found after I put all the pins together is it starts with basic training in Air Training Command. It ends with my enlisted assignment at Lackland, so it started at ATC and it ended at AETC. But it starts again at Air University, which is still AETC, and it ended here. So every beginning is AETC and every ending is as well.
On behalf of your family and fellow airmen, we present you with this shadow box. It leads into it. I'm going to read it. Within the shadow box lies a military member's most honored and cherished possessions, including the flag of the United States of America, representing a lifetime of valiant and faithful service. This is the flag which we honor and serve under. That is the true emblem of our unity, our thoughts, our power, and purpose as a nation. Accept it, protect it, guard it, and ever remember that the young men and women you have trained, guided, and inspired will follow in your footsteps, and defend it with equal pride. Thank you again, Mr. Jensen.
Lieutenant Colonel Jensen, our country's flag has traveled with you throughout your military career and will now pass through the ranks commemorating your career. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the detail to observe today's flag presentation of the Walk of American Flag through the ranks of the Blue Line.
We are about to embark on a journey that could have ended after a short 4-year enlistment. However, by God's will, his service crescendoed into a dynamic 34-year career. Not sure what he had gotten into, Scott arrived at Lackland Air Force Base, Texas, in the dead of night in November of 1985. Upon exiting the bus, immediately the yelling and screaming began from strangers wearing green fatigues. He thought to himself, what have I gotten myself into? And once everyone exited the bus, the Rainbows, although Scott was not sure why these strangers kept calling them that, were made to stand on yellow painted footprints on the concrete. After about 20 minutes, the faint sound of someone walking slowly and deliberately with taps on their boots got louder and louder. Tension was thick as the sound approached. Then the barrage of language filled the nighttime air. So began Scott's military career. Following 6 weeks of basic training, Airman Basic Jensen jumped on another bus to Shepherd Air Force Base, Texas, to train as a heating specialist. While there, Airman Basic Jensen was an active member of the Blue Knights Rifle Drill Team and became the team captain. On his way to his first assignment, the team performed in a parade in downtown Wichita Falls and took first place. And following that parade, Airman Basic Jensen continued to his first assignment.
(1986). After graduating from technical school, Airman Jensen was allowed to take a few days off en route to his first assignment. While on leave, he was promoted to airman. A few days later, he arrived at Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, where he would work in the Civil Engineering Squadron. He was assigned to the heat shop, where he worked on hot water and steam boilers, oil-fired furnaces, and asbestos removal, with many duties in the launch control facilities that operated the Minuteman II nuclear missiles. It was at this time that Airman Jensen met Airman Craig Schwabe, and the two have been close friends ever since.
(1987). Scott was promoted to Airman First Class. And he was moved over to the base hospital, maintaining the heating and air conditioning systems, sterilization equipment, and the control systems that kept many of the hospital systems working. He really enjoyed working with the electronic and pneumatic control systems. With Airman First Class Jensen's demonstrated performance, he was selected to attend the non-commissioned officer preparatory school to prepare him for the responsibilities of an NCO.
1988, Airman First Class Jensen was promoted to Senior Airman and continued working on the controller problems, including electronic controls and base-wide network systems designed to save energy. At one point, he was assigned a project to improve the airflow at the base exchange. He was given the opportunity to crawl inside claustrophobic ductwork on his belly to clean heating coils that had become clogged with dust over the years. He went where no man has gone before. As he approached the decision to re-enlist, Senior Airman Jensen cross-trained to continue full-time in civil engineering, electronics, and control systems. In this job, he would be responsible for fire and security alarms, telemetry, sensors, and systems that controlled many different infrastructure systems. That training required him to go back to Shepherd Air Force Base, Texas.
(1989). While in technical school, Senior Airman Jensen was promoted to the rank of sergeant, or more affectionately known as Buck Sergeant. He graduated at the top of his class and returned to Ellsworth to engineer the access control and security systems for the second largest security alarm system in the Air Force at the time. It was during this part of his career that Sergeant Jensen was introduced to a woman who would change his life forever. Sergeant Jensen's boss, Technical Sergeant Dean Workentine, invited him over to the house for a barbecue. Dean's wife, Bing, invited a very special lady to that same barbecue. It was at that barbecue that Scott and Lena met. About a year later, Sergeant Jensen received orders to Okinawa. He made a decision right then and there that he could not leave Lena behind. She worked on base, so he went to her during lunch. Their conversation went something like this.
I just got orders.
Oh, where to?
Japan. Did you want to come along?
I can't come along. Only your wife can go with me.
I know. Would you like to come along?
And it was a true story. Well, Scott and Lena celebrated their engagement across the street at Burger King. They were married in Rapid City, South Dakota, when the couple who introduced them stood up for the wedding, including their 3 kids. Scott's brother, Sean, and Craig Schwabe stood up for the wedding as well. The wedding occurred on the Saturday prior to moving to Japan. Sergeant Jensen was notified of his selection to Staff Sergeant while the couple were staying in billeting.
(1992). Sergeant Jensen was assigned to the alarm shop in the 18th Civil Engineering Squadron at Kadena Air Base, Okinawa, Japan, in September, and was promoted to Staff Sergeant shortly after arriving. He became the expert for difficult alarm problems on base and advised military and Okinawa civilians on repairs and installations. His final year at Kadena, Staff Sergeant Jensen ran the airfield lighting shop and led the section that maintained lights for 2 runways, taxiways, aprons, and a few navigation aids.
(1998). Staff Sergeant Jensen's next and final enlisted assignment was at Lackland Air Force Base, where he was assigned as the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning supervisor. He led the maintenance and repair of the training area of the base, but that didn't last long. Staff Sergeant Jensen was promoted to Technical Sergeant and then assigned to take over maintenance at Medina Annex. Within a month of being promoted to Technical Sergeant, he was accepted to Officer Training School. Then life really turned upside down when a little one entered the scene. After 7 years of trying to have a child, Scott and Lena finally became parents when their beautiful daughter, Tiffany, entered the world at Wilford Hall. Today, she is a full-time mom and student attending the University of Texas with her sights set on a doctorate of physics degree. (1999). 5 months later, Officer Trainee Jensen
entered officer training school at Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama in November. Scott completed his training and was awarded his gold bars. The commissioning ceremony became a family affair, with his Uncle Bob, a retired Army warrant officer, delivering the commissioning oath to accept his new role. And instead of Second Lieutenant Jensen saluting his officiant, as was the normal practice, Scott received his first salute from the man who officiated his commissioning. Second Lieutenant Jensen attended basic communications officer training at Keesler Air Force Base, Mississippi. Following that initial training, his first assignment was as project officer in the planned flight and flight commander of the 16th Communications Squadron at Roper Field, Florida. He was given the task to wire up all units on base to accept SIPRNet, one of DoD's command and control data networks. About a year and a half later, that network was fully operational when 9/11 happened.
It is now 2002. Before departing Hobart Field, Second Lieutenant Jensen was promoted to First Lieutenant. His next assignment was to the Air Mobility Warfare Center in Fort Dix, New Jersey. The unit was an air mobility command organization with a focus on training, now known as the Air Force Expeditionary Center. First Lieutenant Jensen arrived as the Deputy of Communications, but that role changed as he gained leadership of all the support services, including civil engineering, communications, security, library, and classroom systems maintenance. He was in charge of a $2 million telecommunications contract, as well as a $14 million renovation contract to renovate the center into a high-speed technical schoolhouse.
In 2004, First Lieutenant Jensen was promoted to captain and received his next assignment to Ramstein Air Base, where things got interesting. He took care of the day-to-day maintenance of telephone, radio, and security alarm systems for nuclear weapons in USAF. Then he deployed for a second time to Al Udeid, Qatar, as the Air Force Forces Communications Control Chief. When he returned, he had been hired to be the wing executive officer for the 38th Combat Support Wing under Colonel Earl Matthews. Colonel Matthews was a communications officer by trade, so a lot of unplanned mentorship happened on the fly. But sadly, the 38th shut its doors about a year and a half later. Captain Jensen moved over to 435th Air Base Wing when Colonel Matthews took command of his second wing. Captain Jensen served there for 2 months, working to standardize some of Ramstein's war plans. During this time, something else significant happened. Captain Jensen completed his Master of Divinity degree, was ordained as part of the Conservative Lutheran Association, but was not selected to make the transition to chaplain as envisioned. Instead, he was hired as one of the action officers in the United States Air Force's in Europe Commander's Action Group. While in this office, Captain Jensen served as a speechwriter and assisted with trip preparation for a 4-star commander and 2-star vice commander. Then he received orders for his 3rd deployment to Afghanistan for a year. He was assigned as the planner for the Afghan Air Corps. While deployed, he stood up a chapel program serving 27 nationalities with weekly services, Bible studies, and counseling. He returned to the Commander's Action Group a year later and was notified of his selection to Major shortly before leaving Germany.
The shores of Hawaii were the Jensen's next destination in 2005 with a move to the Defense Information Systems Agency. He was promoted to Major, where he led the 24/7 operations floor for systems connecting the land masses of California, Alaska, the Pacific, and into the Middle East. It was during this assignment that Scott and Lena received their second bundle of joy with Tyler's arrival. He was born 10 weeks premature at only 3 pounds. Today, you can't tell there were any problems, and he is an amazingly smart 3rd grader. Just ask him about black holes. He's not shy, and you might just learn something. In 2002, Major Jensen was selected as the Director of Operations of the 51st Communications Squadron and moved to Osan Air Base, South Korea. As Director of Operations, Major Jensen was responsible for renovating nearly all of the air traffic control and landing systems at Osan, including replacing all of the equipment for the air traffic control tower and RAPCON facility, and building a brand new digital radar, all while a new second runway was being constructed. Osan is normally an assignment with few families, but Lena, Tiffany, and Tyler were able to enjoy the tour as well. The Jensens left Osan 6 months early due to Major Jensen being selected to attend the Army's Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. At Fort Leavenworth, Major Jensen completed a master's degree in Homeland Security and taught a few soldiers what air, space, and cyberspace was all about. While in school, Major Jensen was selected for promotion to Lieutenant Colonel. Then the big selection came: Squadron Command of the 85th Engineering Installation Squadron at Keesler Air Force Base, Mississippi. Major Jensen was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel and became an Air Force instructor while waiting to move to command.
Lieutenant Colonel Jensen assumed command of the 85th Engineering and Installation Squadron in June 2015. The squadron was responsible for building air traffic control, radio, and cyberspace infrastructure across the globe to include some high-profile locations like the White House, the new U.S. Strategic Command Complex at Offutt Air Force Base, and many missions with Joint Special Operations Command. His final 2 deployments were to Kuwait and Afghanistan while assigned here. One more member of the family entered the scene while stationed in Mississippi. Lieutenant Colonel Jensen's daughter Tiffany became a mom with the birth of her son Brendan. He's a 3-year-old, active little man that tends to run the household, and he likes to spend time with Grandpa from time to time. At his request, Lieutenant Colonel Jensen received his final orders to San Antonio, which led him to Air Education and Training Command staff. Lieutenant Colonel Jensen has served at Randolph for the past 2 years and has worked to make a positive impact on every step of the way. Lieutenant Colonel Jensen has spent more than 3 decades serving under the banner of the United States Air Force. So on behalf of his many friends, we wish to present him the serviceman's most honored and cherished possession, the United States national flag. The flag you have so proudly served and so honorably defended, the flag we honor and served under, is the true emblem of our unity, our thoughts, our power and purpose as a nation. Accept it, protect it, guard it, and forever remember that the young men and women you have trained, guided, mentored, and inspired will follow in your footsteps and defend it with equal pride. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Lieutenant Colonel Scott A. Jensen, United States Air Force, retired.
No remarks because it would be way too emotional for me to do anything like that. So first, let's give a round of applause for the Line of Blue. They did a Something like this can't happen with a crazy number of volunteers. So Sabrina, Dave, Joe. All of you guys, all the whole line out here, I don't know how many members we even have doing this whole thing, but between Sabrina really doing a lot of the light work with some of this stuff, and Don Sims, I don't know where Don's at. Is he hiding around the corner? So he's the gentleman that was actually helping some folks in the parking lot, bringing some folks inside here. Between the two of them, they have done a crazy amount of light work out here. There's also some other folks, I know we had some other members of the committee that were helping out and do some stuff here, and I know at least one of them had to jet out right away. So for all of the volunteers, I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done to make this a success. So thank you very much for all your efforts. So I wanted to do something a little bit different because this Line of Blue is not something we normally have inside of our retirements. But I saw this done with the chief at Hurlburt Field, and I was going to adopt it as my own. There are many airmen that serve today that have had some enlisted trails, but not all of us have a lot of enlisted trails. So by Army standards, Fred, you can probably speak on this. I had too much time to cross over, because Army standard is once you hit 10, you're done. You can't cross over anymore. So I was well past 14 when I crossed over. But I've had a lot of weird experiences along the way. So, climbing inside the ductwork in the BX to go in and clean the ducts. I was on one of those dollies you use to maintain underneath cars, sliding across the ceiling, down a hallway that was about half the size of a football field. So what I hear from the folks that were down below me is that they hear this ka-dunk, 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 as the wheels were hitting all the different joints in the ductwork, rolling back and forth. But you know, when you're 120 pounds, soaking wet, you can do things like this. But, asbestos, when we had it back in the time, it actually came in containers kind of like flour bags. What do you suppose a bunch of 18-year-olds do with flour bags? Yeah, we kind of filled the shop. It wasn't considered a hazard back then. So we did asbestos removal and asbestos installation with wet asbestos, think like plaster. So, yeah, it's documented on that.
Yeah.
Things have changed since then. When I came in 1985, we were double the size of what we are now. Not only that, there were, horrendous deployments to go to, like West Germany. Okay, you had to live in tents, but today that's nothing. That's a vacation spot. You know, can we get off base? Can we do stuff? No? Okay, still vacation. Things have changed. And all these airmen back here, they don't know a time that we've ever been at peace. So when I joined the service, it was a way different standard than any of these folks in the back wall. So thank you for volunteering. I do have some folks inside here that have traveled a great distance to be here. Craig flew in from Michigan a couple nights ago. He was the best man at a wedding. Jacqueline and Don Bean. This is going to sound strange. I've known them 13 years. We met yesterday. So think about that for a minute. We've known each other from video gaming. And that developed into a relationship that has spread far past the video game. That's crazy. But that's the world we're in now. I've spent a lot of time with Fred and Martha, going ahead and talking about all sorts of topics. Fred's a retired Army colonel. Was scheduled to make his 1-star. He chose a different path. Andy, you retired last year. So, Colonel Sorrell, sir, you got that ahead of you someday. We all get to hang this suit up. Chris Rubiano, we have been together, I think, 4 assignments now? We seem to be following each other. So we were stationed at Ramstein together. I was the exec for the 38th Combat Support Wing. He was the exec for the 435th. I gave him my boss. So at the time, Colonel Earl Matthews, which some of you may know who he is, he was in his first wing command. They shut the 38th out, and he moved over to the 435th, where Chris was serving as the exec. We had a lot of paperwork we had to pass back and forth. Shortly thereafter, I got hired up to the CAG, which, because we spent crazy amounts of time with people, there was a little bit of an interview process to make sure you weren't a jerk. Okay? When we came up with an opening, I recommended Chris, and it was the right choice. Chris came on up at that time. And then they sent me to Afghanistan. This was great. So I go to Colonel Matthews. I said, "Sir, I served underneath you as exec for about 1.5 years. Didn't get much time to go ahead and do some of the touring around Europe. Would you consider extending me for a year?" He looked at it and said, 4 years at Germany? Yeah, that's not going to hurt your career. We'll do that. The assignment team goes, ding, 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 ding. We got a taker here. By having a year and a half left on station, it opened up the opportunity to serve a 365 in Afghanistan. Yeah, I didn't get any more touring time. But it was a good experience in many ways. And one of them was that I was able to stay on the chapel program because we had a chapel, but we didn't have a chaplain. So 27 different nationalities out there, about 1,700 people on a normal day. They didn't have anyone taking care of the people. They had a Catholic priest that was there from the Belgians. They was there for a short time. Stika, which was the command in charge of Afghanistan, couldn't spare another chaplain. So I called the chaplain's office to ask if we could have communion materials. And the conversation went something like this. Can we get some communion materials? Who are you? You can't have alcohol in Afghanistan. That's, this is, you can't have that at all. I'm like, hold on, stop. I'll send you my credentials. Next conversation, which was just a half hour later, oh, so you want to stand up a chapel program? And it wasn't where I was going, but let's try this. And we did. We had weekly services on Thursday evening because it was the only day we could fit it into the schedule. So I have being a non-chaplain serving in a Muslim country as a pastor, I had some shackles taken off of me that the chaplains did have, that had restrictions with. I could pray in Jesus' name.
All right.
Because I'm Lutheran and that's what I come from. So I did. And it changed command in front of all of the Afghan generals from the Afghan army. That was awesome. Because no one was criticizing anything I had to say. I was going to say what I was going to say. I did a couple of Christmas services out there, one of which had Afghan translators inside of there. Guess what they heard? They heard my message. I was able to do a full immersion baptism in Afghanistan. And I was able to administer to an Afghan soldier whose father was an imam. And he had a little Bible, so I didn't convert him. He came to me, and I just continued. He had a little English Bible that was given to him by some German translators years ago. He kept it underneath his pillow at night. Just imagine, just put in perspective the freedoms that we enjoy today and what he was experiencing. He would always take that Bible with him, stick it in his pocket as he went to work. One day he forgot about it. And his sister found it. In Afghanistan, at least at this time, most women could not read, and only about 45% of the men could read any language. Any language. Oh, by the way, how do you teach them how to run Windows? That was my job. Yeah, you can't read anything, you can't take notes, but let me show you how to get error codes out of the windows that just blink. Oh, great, this will be fun. He went ahead and his sister found it, gave it to one of his cousins. His cousin knew what it was, and when he got back, they beat the hell out of him, almost killed him. Had his father found it, he would have been killed, so he had to move out of his house. He moved in with a cousin. He converted his cousin to Christianity, and about a month later, he was killed by a roadside bomb. You never know the impact you have until we're not even here anymore. But that's been my my path for a long time. So I've been with Concordia now for about 2 years as a volunteer. In 10 days, I start full time. So I'd like to thank you all for coming here. I'm humbled by all the volunteers. Thank you all for coming out here and helping participate in this celebration. This is my buddy Brendan. Anyway, Lena has gone to a lot of trouble making some wonderful food out there for you. And I hope you'll have, spend a few moments with us and enjoy. Thank you very much.
Before we play and sing the Air Force song, I believe Lieutenant Colonel Jensen has some gifts to give. If he wants to.
So, there's no way to repay a family for all the wonderful things that they've done to support me inside of my service. I was born in Wisconsin, and at the age of 11, we moved to Texas. So my heart's in Texas. So I grew up in a little bitty town called Big Spring. So on behalf of all the Texas years we've had together, I'd like to present these yellow roses of Texas. Red is the color of love, so there's no place I can give this except to my wife. And for Tiffany, I hope that you don't have any scars of any difficulties in your life. But I got a couple others, because you get support from the most unusual channels. My son started dealing with letters when he was very young. Sounds normal, right? Skip colors, skip shapes. Went to flags. And that went to the capitals of every nation on the globe, which has now gone into, let me tell you where the closest planet is that might be inhabitable to humans. So this last weekend we went to Houston. We went to NASA. But he loves Pokemon. Rubes, you gotta go ahead and work with this one. Sometimes kids love to swim and love bathtubs. Brandon doesn't have too many bathtub toys, but he loves dogs. Can you make it up?
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the playing and singing of the Air Force song and remain standing for the departure of the official party.
We go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high to the sun. We're the young, coming to meet our thunder, and a boy's really done. Give with a gun! Down we rise, stopping our flames from under, off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame, and we're down in flame. Hey, nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force.
So, folks.